These are 5 incredibly powerful things that neuroscience taught me about healing that will completely change how you see yourself. Hi, I'm Charlotte, a neuroscientist helping you become the greatest story you've ever told by making your brain your best friend. Firstly, your brain is lying to you. Not every thought that you have deserves to be believed. So right now, you are probably experiencing life through a nervous system that is adapted to pain, to trauma, or even abandonment. And that changes absolutely everything. Because when we go through heartbreak or rejection or grief, the brain doesn't just feel those experiences emotionally, it physically learns them. Our neural pathways begin encoding emotional patterns around protection, around survival. And over time, something really dangerous happens. Your feelings become interpreted as facts. I feel unworthy, so I must be unworthy. I feel unlovable, so I must be unlovable. But neurologically, that is not even remotely close to the truth. What's actually happening is this. Your brain is sensing uncertainty, risk, possible failure. So it generates these really intense emotional signals and thoughts designed to pull you away from the very thing it believes will hurt you again. And that includes pulling you away from other people, other opportunities, even yourself. You don't feel like yourself anymore. But it is not an identity. It is not who you are. It's just pattern recognition playing out. It's a survival mechanism. And this is where healing becomes even more fascinating. There is so much for you to look forward to be hopeful for. It's just that your brain cannot see it yet. Here's why. Your current emotional reality only feels permanent because your nervous system has rehearsed it enough for it to feel familiar. But here's the thing. Familiarity is not destiny. In neuroscience, the brain is constantly filtering your reality through prior experience. It's what we call predictive processing. So your brain is not a truth machine. It is not showing you objective reality. It is showing you what it expects to see based on what you have emotionally survived before. Which means a wounded brain will always predict a dark future where a lot of possibility actually exists. That is why you can be surrounded by love, yet still feel impossible to love. It's why you can be deeply talented, yet feel fundamentally inadequate. It's why you can be inches away from a really beautiful future, yet emotionally feel like there's absolutely nothing left for you. Because pain narrows our perception completely. So if your brain is telling you there's nothing left for you, I need you to understand this very carefully. That is not prophecy. It is just protection. Big difference. Which brings me to point number 3, and this might just be the most beautiful thing you will ever learn about your brain. The love you give is never truly wasted. It always comes back to you. Decades of research shows us that when we experience trust or affection or closeness to someone, the brain releases this powerful neurochemical called oxytocin, what you might know as the bonding hormone. But here is the extraordinary part. The brain doesn't just release oxytocin when we receive love, it releases it when we give it too. Acts of kindness, comforting someone, holding someone's hand, making another person feel seen and heard. All of these experiences can activate the very same neural circuits, the same neural systems of warmth and connection within ourselves. So it creates what we call a positive feedback loop. The smallest acts of kindness to others releases even more oxytocin within ourselves. It's a biological process known as bidirectional oxytocin release, or help as high as slang. So what that means is that love doesn't just make the world a better place, but it actually makes us fall in love with ourselves more. It's also why we think kindness feels so healing. Absolutely insane when you think about it. And speaking of healing, that brings me nicely to point number 4. Nature heals our brain in ways medicine couldn't even touch. I absolutely love this one. I have always been drawn to the outdoors. The ocean, the mountains, the forests, the snow, absolutely everything. And for the longest time, I never really understood why nature makes us feel so human again, until I went into neuroscience. Because it turns out that the brain is structured in a way that is completely complementary with nature. There's actually a process in neuroscience called biophilic healing or biophilia. The very idea that the human brain and body physically responds to natural environments in a way that actually repairs and restores the nervous system. It's the very reason that architects and interior designers are creating entire homes and offices and even airports around this very design type. And one of the most beautiful and fascinating parts of this comes from something called fractals. Fractals are the repeating patterns found everywhere in nature. The branching of trees, the veins in leaves, coastlines, clouds, river systems, even the way that lightning actually strikes across the sky. And when your brain looks at these patterns, something extraordinary happens. Your visual cortex begins to relax. So your cortisol levels, your stress levels, in some research shows drops by as much as 40 to 50%. It's almost as if the brain recognises that nature was this place it was always meant to return to. Which means healing isn't always about doing more. It's not always about more productivity, more focus, more effort. If anything, it's a complete return to simplicity. It's the zooming out and remembering that you are part of something much, much bigger. And my final point is something that most people don't even believe is physically possible. We can rewrite over painful memories. Really. Neuroscience has recently discovered in the last decade or so that memories are not set in stone. They're more like these living documents, constantly being rewritten and updated over time. And it means that we can actually change how our past influences our future. We call this memory reconsolidation. And it's one of the reasons that therapies like EMDR, trauma therapies, actually exist. Same premise. Every time you recall a memory, it becomes what we call labile, which is just a really fancy way of saying that it's moldable or changeable for a few hours before it gets stored back in the hippocampus again. This creates what scientists or even your therapist might call a window of opportunity. Because here's the thing, if a painful memory is recalled whilst you're experiencing safety or compassion or emotional support, your brain can begin to update the emotional meaning attached to it. It gives it a completely new tag. Obviously, we can't go back and change what happened to you, but the way that that memory actually lives in your nervous system, yeah, we can absolutely change that. We have so much research that proves over time the brain can actually reduce that emotional charge. So it no longer carries that same sting. So whilst you cannot rewrite the beginning of your story, neuroscience proves you can change the way that the memory is carried forward. And that means you are always still holding the pen for the chapters that are yet to come. Really, truly. So when you're healing, I want you to think like this. You are not rebuilding a broken machine. You are tending to a living system. A system that has been trying to protect you your entire life. And just like gardens do not heal because we get angry at them for having weeds. Right? They heal because slowly and patiently we uproot them and start planting flowers instead. Big, big difference. And that is it for today's deep dive. If you enjoyed, make sure to like, comment and subscribe, and definitely come hang out with me on TikTok and Instagram at NeuroCharlotte, where I'll be sharing even more neuroscience goodness, and I shall see you in the next one.